And now I began to apply myself to make such necessary things as I found most wanted, particularly a chair and a table, for without these I was not able to enjoy the few comforts I had in the world. I could not eat or write, or do several things, with so much pleasure without a table. I had never handled a tool in my life, and yet, in time, by labor, application, and contrivance, I found at last that I wanted nothing but I could have made it, especially if I had had tools. However, I made abundance of things even without tools, and some with no more tools than an adze and hatchet, which, perhaps, were never made the way before. And that with infinite labor, for example, if I wanted a board, I had no other way but to cut down a tree, set it on an edge before me, and hew it flat on either side with my axe till I had brought it to be as thin as a plank, and then dub it smooth with my adze. It is true, by this method, I could make but one board out of my whole tree, but this I had no remedy for but patience. Any more than this that I had for the prodigious deal of the time and labor which it took me to make up a plank or board, but my time and labor were little worth, and so they were well employed one way as another. However, I made me a table and a chair, as I observed above, in the first place, and this I did out of the short pieces of board that I brought on my raft from the ship. But when I had wrought out some boards, as above, I made large shelves of the breadth of a foot and half, one over another, all along one side of my cave, to lay all my tools, nails, and ironworks, and in a word to separate everything at large in their places, that I might come very easily at them. I knocked pieces into the wall of the rock to hang my guns, and all things that would hang up, so that, had my cave been so seen, it looked like a general magazine of all necessary things. And I had everything so ready at my hand, that it was a great pleasure to me to see all my goods such order, and especially to find my stock of all necessaries so great. And now it was that I began to keep a journal of every day's employment. For indeed at first I was in too much hurry, and not only hurry as to labor, but in too much discomposure of my mind, and my journal would have been full of many dull things. But having gotten over these things in some measure, and having settled my household stuff and habitation, made me a table and chair, and all as handsome about me as I could. But I began to keep my journal, of which I shall here give you the copy, though in it will be told all these particulars over again, as long as it lasted, for having no more ink, I was forced to leave it off. November 4th. This morning I began order of times of work, of going out with my gun, time of sleep, and time of diversion. Namely, every morning I walked out with my gun for 2 or 3 hours, if it did not rain, then employed myself to work till about 11 o'clock, then ate what I had to live on, and from 12 to 2 I lay down to sleep, the weather being excessively hot, and then in the evening to work again. The working part of this day and of the next were wholly employed in making my table, for I was yet but a very sorry workman, though time and necessity made it complete natural mechanics soon after, as I believe it would do anyone else. November 5th. The day went abroad with my gun and my dog, and killed a wild cat, her skin pretty soft, but her flesh good for nothing. Every creature I killed, I took off the skins and preserved them. Coming back by the seashore, I saw many sorts of sea fowls, which I did not understand, but was surprised and almost frighted, with 2 or 3 seals, which, while I was gazing at, not well knowing what they were, got into the sea and escaped me for that time. November 6th. After my morning walk, I went to work with my table again, and finished it, though not to my liking, nor was it long before I earned to mend it. November 7th. Now it began to be settled fair weather, the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and part of the 12th, for the 11th was Sunday. I took wholly up to make me a chair, and, with much ado, brought it to a tolerable shape, but never to please me, and even in the making I pulled it in pieces several times. November 17th. This day I began to dig behind my tent into the rock, to make room for my further conveniencey. Note, 3 things I wanted exceedingly for this work, namely a pickaxe, a shovel, and a wheelbarrow, or basket, So I desisted from my work and began to consider how to supply that want, and make me some tools. As for a pickaxe, I made use of the iron crows, which were proper enough, though heavy, but the next thing was a shovel or spade. This was so absolutely necessary that indeed I could do nothing effectually without it. But what kind of one to make I knew not. November 18th. The next day, in searching the woods, I found a tree of the wood, or like it, which in the Brazils they call the iron tree, for its exceeding hardness. Of this, with great labor, and almost spoiling my axe, I cut a piece, and brought it home too with difficulty enough, for it was exceedingly heavy. The excessive hardness of the wood, and having no other way, made me a long while upon this machine, for I worked it effectually by little and little into the form of a shovel or spade, the handle exactly shaped like ours in England, only that the broad part having no iron shot upon it at bottom, it would not last me so long. However, it served well enough for the uses which I had occasion to put it to, but never was a shovel, I believe, made after that fashion, or so long a making. I was still deficient, for I wanted a basket or a wheelbarrow. A basket I could not make by any means, having no such things as twigs that would bend to make wicker ware, at least not yet found out. And as to a wheelbarrow, I fancied I could make all but the wheel, but that I had no notion of, neither did I know how to go about it. Besides, I had no possible way to make the iron gudgeons, for the spindle or axes, or of the wheel to run in. So I gave it over. And so, for carrying away the earth, which I dug out of the cave, I made me a little thing like a hod, which the laborers carry mortar in when they serve the bricklayers. November 23rd. My other work having now stood still because of my making these tools when they were finished, I went on, and working every day as my strength and time allowed, I spent 18 days entirely in widening and deepening my cave, that it might hold my goods commodiously. Note, during this time, I worked to make this room, or cave, spacious enough to accommodate me as a warehouse, or magazine, a kitchen, a dining room, and a cellar. As for my lodging, I kept to the tent, except that sometimes, in the wet season of the year, it rained so hard that I could not keep myself dry, which caused me afterwards to cover all my place with my pail with long poles in the form of rafters, leaning against the rock, and load them with flags and large leaves of trees like thatch.